Why don't we call the meeting to order at what time it is here? 9:35. President Carol Rowe, Bill McGowan, Paul Kears, Wayne Sawchuk, and Dan Coughlin. So I think our first order of business is when our next meeting will be, and it looks
April
like
12th.
April 12th is fine. Yeah.
Okay, 9:30. I already confirmed with Brenda. She does not have a meeting that morning.
Yeah. We
I'm
can't
still
get her
waiting to
on.
hear. I'm still waiting to hear from IT as to whether or not we'll be able to get our own Zoom account.
Is he in the building?
Who?
Whoever the IT guy is?
I don't know if he's in this building or if he's at the school.
Yeah, 90% of the time they're at the school.
Yeah.
Well, send him an email. How's that?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and I would
Good.
copy Chris and copy Michelle and say, we need to know before the 12th, period.
Okay.
But it isn't that much money. I mean, it's
No,
take it out of our budget. If it's $50 a month at the most, but I
oh
think it's
God, it shouldn't
Wait.
even be that. I mean, it's, we use it twice a month.
right.
Yeah, I know,
Right.
it's cuckoo.
I'm going
you-
to put in Mr. Gallagher because he is the abatement, the only abatement today that's actually shown up.
Okay,
So it's 137 North Main. I just sent all of that information to your emails.
okay.
Good morning. This is Mark Gallagher. I can see all of you. I'm wondering if you can see and hear me.
Yes,
Great. Thank you very much.
Mark, you can go ahead and let the board know what your issue is with the abatement.
Great. First, just thanks for taking the time to review what we submitted, and thanks for taking the time to hear from me today. And obviously happy to answer any questions you would have. I think at its essence, what seems to have happened is there was a spike in water usage, very, very unusual and not consistent with how we normally use water for this period of 4 days in late December. We were away during that period. We were in Florida from December 22nd to December 31st. We got home close to midnight on December 31st. So when we didn't realize that there was any flow during that period, or certainly nothing unusual, until we got our water bill, I guess it was in late January or early February, we immediately noticed this spike in usage and in charges. And then, made some inquiries at the water department, and they were able to show us that there was this spike over those few days. I know that Tuesday, December 27th, there were contractors here in the house. And what I suspect happened was they left a toilet running, and it ran that whole period of time. There is one toilet in our house, in a first floor bathroom that can stick if people don't watch it. And I'm thinking maybe that's what happened. It's a bathroom that's poised to be demoed in a month or so, I hope. But I believe that basically that was the issue. I understand we're not asserting certainly that the flow didn't happen. It's something that was beyond our control, and not something that we certainly didn't do it intentionally, and weren't even in a position to remedy it or be aware of it when it was going on. As I said in the attachment, we're happy to provide any documentation if you would like to provide evidence that we were in Florida and that we were not home. There's 5 of us who live here. Nobody else was in the house during that period. But I guess I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have.
What are you looking for? How much money?
I don't recall the exact amount. The usage for those 3 days was 2,700 cubic feet.
It comes out, I'm sorry, excuse me, it comes out to $282.42.
42 cents, right? Right, I calculated it a little bit higher at 305.11 based on the going on the average of 3,000. So how do you how did you come up with the decision that 2,700 is the number in cubic feet, right? So it was 4,700
Yes.
and now
The
you
20.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it was fairly simple on my part in that when the water department looked at the flow, those 3 days was 2,700 cubic feet total. Normally, I mean, we obviously we weren't home, so the usage would have been 0 or somewhere close to 0, I assume, over those few days. You know, to the extent it's more appropriate to look at what our typical average water usage would have been over a period of time like that and you know, look at the differential there. You know, I could understand if that's the position that the commission needs to take. I think it was probably overly simplistic. I just looked at it and said, look, it was 2,700 cubic feet that went through. We weren't home for any of it. And that's what we put in the request.
Yeah, so your average over the last 3 quarters was 3,000.
For the quarter.
Yeah, so why would you?
So, sorry.
3,000, yeah, 3,000
Sorry.
on the 4,700.
Yeah, apologies. I maybe wasn't precise. The 2,700 cubic feet was the flow just for those 4 days. It wasn't for the whole quarter. It was just for those 4 days. So normally we use, are you saying that normally we use 3,000 cubic feet?
Yeah, I'm looking at the sewer bill, right? So I'm calculating from, if you take 2022, 11, 8, and 5, you get 3,800, 3,500, 1,700. That's 3,000.
And that's for
Average.
the entire quarter, correct?
Right, and then your bill for the first quarter or for the last quarter, right? December, January,
Yeah.
February, there's 4,700.
If I'm understanding correctly, though, in a typical quarter for those 90 days,
Yeah,
we're using somewhere in the range of, I've seen a low of 1,700 and I've seen a high of 3,800. So that's a 90-day period.
right.
This 2,700 is the flow that took place just during those 4 days. So for the rest,
that doesn't make sense, because if the bill says 4,700, right? And
Right,
that bill is for 60 days. No, it's for 90 days.
90 days, correct.
Right. You're telling me in 4 days, half your usage was, you're telling me that half your usage was in 4 days.
Yeah,
If you didn't go on vacation, and the contractor was not there, you're telling me your flow rate.
I missed the last part of your sentence, excuse me.
So if you weren't on vacation
Correct.
and you were home,
Mhm.
you're telling us that your flow rate for that quarter, those 90 days, would only be 2,000 cubic feet. When the quarter prior to that was 3,800, the quarter prior to that was 3,500, and in the spring, in the spring, it was 1,700.
Right,
So you're telling me that you would have used probably 10% less water from the holiday seasons, right? November, December, and January.
yeah, as I said, what I did probably overly simplistically was I looked at the total usage for the 90-day period, this latest bill, which was 47, And then I took the number that the water department provided me about what the flow was for those 4 days, which was 2,700. And that's where I came up with the 2,700 number. I understand if the more appropriate way to look at it is what would we have typically used? I don't know whether it's an average of the last several quarters, and then, look at the difference between that usage. We've never used anything like 4,700 feet. It's a quarter where we really were only home for 85 days of the 90, right? So you have actually, I should say, we were really only there for about 80 days of the 90, 4 of which this flow took place. So there were 10 days during that quarter where we were not home at all using water, or 9 days. So I'm not wedded to I put that number in there as the number that was given to me, but I understand if there's a more appropriate way that you believe it should be calculated.
Well, I'm lost in the math here because if I take all of 2022, those 4
Correct.
quarters and average it out, you average 3,075.
Okay.
Right? And you're telling us that that's your average for 90 days. And you're telling us that they used almost that much in just 4 days, which just doesn't make sense. There's either a giant hole in your house where all this water went in 4 days.
Yeah, I can only tell you
Yeah.
this fact. What I'm telling you, as I say, there are 5 people live in this house. All 5 of us were away in Florida for that 10-day period. There was nobody in this home for that entire period. So again, when the town told me that 2,700 cubic feet had been used, and it was those 4 days, which is part of the time that we were out of state and not home, obviously I was stunned by it too. The technician came from the water department. He looked, went down in the basement. He looked around. He said there were no leakage that he could see, in terms of a water line coming into the house. There's no evidence of any leakage anywhere else in the home, like in terms of water on the floor, ceiling, anything like that. So I don't frankly understand where and how the 2,700 cubic feet flowed those 4 days. I can only tell you that factually we were not home.
Yeah, Paul, just for perspective, it's about 3.5 gallons a minute continuous for those 4 days. So that's like a hose running.
Would that be consistent with a running toilet?
No,
Now, you said that there were builders inside the house doing work.
They were, sorry, yeah, they're cleaning contractors, a cleaning contractor, not a
Okay,
builder, a cleaner.
so it wasn't vacant.
Yeah,
The house
so
was-
my
was-
question is, you're positive all of this water went through the sewer and didn't go anywhere else?
I'm not. I'm only basing it off of, again, when we first inquired with the water department, they came back and said, we looked at the daily flow, and on those 4 days, 2,700 flowed. And I thought that they told me that flowed sewer as well.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I am positive, but that was what my understanding was.
Well, can we move on a little bit? Because
Yeah,
there are-
can I hear it? I'd like to make a motion here. Let me give you the,
first of all, Paul,
yeah,
ask if the water department gave them any abatement first,
yeah. So,
follow in their steps.
so have you been to the water department and asked them for any abatements?
Yes, we applied for an abatement at the same time that we applied for the abatement with the sewer commission. And I've been in touch with them regularly. They told me that we will be on an upcoming agenda, but we haven't been put on an agenda for a meeting yet.
Okay. What I'm looking, so the number doesn't make sense to me. So I calculated your whole year of 2022
Mhm.
and your average 3,075. So the difference between that and the 4,700 is 1,625, in which if you calculate what the rate would be, $169.97. Because we had to process all that sewer anyway. So it's
Got
not,
it. That,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
those
and
numbers all make sense to me.
yes,
I think we should see what the water department does, and then we can relook at this, because I mean, if it's gone through our sewer, you know, we had to process it, so. I mean, if you had a leak all over the floor and everything, maybe we could consider that, but when are you scheduled to see them? Their next meeting?
I've been told that, I've been told that we will be on an upcoming agenda, but I haven't been told when yet. I usually touch base with Brenda about once a
Yes.
week to just make sure. Yeah, I understand to the extent that if the options available to you are limited of the fact of, look, if it flowed through the sewer, it flowed through the sewer.
Yeah.
You know, I think we were just hopeful that, I know you have some, at least per the policy, there's some level of discretion to make exceptions and things like that. I think I would just say this, and I'm happy, I think your suggestion to set it aside until the water department acts is perfectly appropriate with us. Look, you know, this was something that was not within our control. And, you know, we really had no opportunity to stop this, no opportunity to remedy it while it was going on. I think if you look at us historically, you know, we've been customers of the water department. We've been residents of the town for 12 plus years. I think we're pretty judicious users of it. You know, no irrigation system, no pool, no major heavy water usage. I think we try to really use the resource carefully. And, you know, we would hope and ask that if it's possible to exercise any discretion in that way to recognize that fact, we'd appreciate it very much.
You know, I think we can look at it, you know, to see what the water department does, but you know, the sort of lever of action for us is, you know, has it gone into our sewer system? Have we actually processed it? If it hasn't, you know, then we could, in my opinion only, I would say, okay, we give you an abatement, but if it has, it changes the dynamics, but
What I could do in the meantime, and because I don't know the answer to this, is ask a plumber if in fact, if it was a toilet that was running, would that water, I'm assuming it's continuously trying to refill the tank in the back of the toilet, and then whether that water in that method goes into our system is such that we have a holding tank with a pump that pumps out into the town sewer.
yeah, everyone does, yeah, we all do, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I wonder whether they can tell you, yes, that water would have just been going, you know, from the tank into the bowl and then leaking out, or would it definitely have been going into the sewer?
If you've got a grinder pump in your yard, it goes into our sewer system.
Yeah. Okay,
It can save you the cost on the plumber, so.
Okay, well, let's table this till the next meeting and.
Yeah.
And only in,
Yeah, just, come back to us whenever you see the water department, come back whenever you can, all right?
I'll reach out to Carol. Thank you for your time. I very much appreciate it.
No problem, no problem.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a CJC update.
is there anything on 95 Pleasant that was on the agenda?
No, I don't think they're here, so I don't see them anyway. I don't see them. No,
The only thing I have for CJC update is, I had sent both of you the PDF version of the amendment that we all agreed to.
Yep.
And we had Greg Corbo review that, and his email was on March 2nd saying that he was fine with the agreement. We sent it off to Jeff DeLeese, and he was fine with the agreement. I spoke with him yesterday just to confirm that there were no additional changes necessary. And he's still in agreement with what we agreed to. So we just need to execute the document. So what I'd like to do is, Mr. Chair, is just have you send the document to the town clerk so that we could all sign the document. It requires CJC to sign it, the 3 commissioners to sign it, and the town manager to sign it. And
Okay.
all signatures have to be witnessed and notarized.
can do. In fact, I might even be there tomorrow, so I'll just,
Okay. So Carol has a copy of it, as well as the two of you, so just let us know, we'll go sign that.
Yeah, so Carol, if you print out a copy, I'll try to get there tomorrow, definitely by Friday, and we'll push this through. All right.
Okay,
And the one thing I'd ask for our next meeting is for Dan Coughlin to work with Mark over at Tetra. I'd like to know if you could give us a summary of the entire project as it relates to the agreement that we have, and are we ready to fully execute the whole of the agreement where he's fully hooked up and he's operational. I'd like to know where we are on all of that. So is that something, Dan, that you could do within 2 weeks?
Yeah, just, again, they have temporary panels, so they are running and they are discharging into the system at this point in time.
Yeah.
I've asked an update, just to get a feel for if the new panels, they were supposed to be in by now. If those have been installed, they haven't heard anything for a final inspection and setup. But Mark was going to be putting together a whole package with the inspections, reports, some of the photos, similar to what he did on the first Route 3A
Okay,
package. And I would suspect he was just waiting for the final control panel information, but I'll double check with him, and I would suspect that we'd be able to get that together.
okay. Yeah, we just want to make sure that we have this final sign off. And then, you know, we need to have a post meeting just to evaluate everything as it relates to the agreement, because then we have to notify the town, right? Once he's fully executed the agreement, the following quarter is when he starts paying the monies over the next 20 years.
Sure, but again, he has been active for some time with the temporary panels.
Correct. We're still waiting on those panels to be executed, you to inspect them. And then we have to make sure that the reporting mechanisms that are going to come to us are something that is in a format in which we can discern the information.
Sure, as well as the as-built plans.
Yeah,
And Paul, the only thing I would have to add to that is, you know, I obviously defer the engineering details to Mark, but my understanding is that the Stop and Shop building has not yet been activated, and that the generic control is on the 380 building presently. And I'm sure that there will be an update to all of that within the next few weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
awesome, thank you.
Okay, we're all set with that. The state of the town is our next thing, and I'll just give some context to this. I think a week or so ago, I ran into Pam Fahey, our health agent, and asked her to give us, she gave me a variety of things that we need to be looking at, and I asked her to join our next meeting to give us an update of these items as to, you know, what we should be doing and what we should have our attention focused to. So Pam, I'll let you take over.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, so this was in the context of talking about whether or not we really need regional sewer. And I was just saying, in terms of like from the health department, I would love to get regional sewer up 3A, because really all those businesses, all those strip malls and stuff, they all struggle on septic. They're really not made for septic. So if you think of 3A, start off down like by Curtis Liquors, for years they were having backups, and that kids' shoe store was getting flooded with sewage. They had to put everything up like 6 inches off the floor. Finally, last summer, we had Rosano Davis went in and they took the floor back in the physical therapy place, and they did replace pipes. So that place is now stable. But if you move up the street, Mulaney's Seafood, that building is in failure right now. They're in the design phase. but it's really limited where they can put a new septic in there. The front of the building has shallow ledge. If you're looking at the building to the left-hand side, there's no room over there. They're right on the property line. The back is all wetlands. So they're gonna have to dig up the old system and put the new system where the old one exists, which is really not a great idea. And they're gonna have so many variances. It really kind of just shows that they're really made for sewer, not septic. I mean, to have to ask for like 4 at least variances, and they're gonna have a hard time going through Concom. And then any place that has a coffee place, so Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Mary Lou's, they all struggle. It's the fats from the milk. And even though they all have grease traps and stuff, they have releases and they have to deal with repairs frequently. Luckily 380 CJC, that was recently connected because that was really bad with the Chinese restaurant and a former Dunkin' Donuts there that had been a failure for years. And then if you go all the way to the end where the South Shore Athletic Center is, they've recently had backups in their showers. They have giant leaching fields in the front and the back. It's a huge system because they have commercial and they have residential above them. And that's kind of a tenant landlord situation of who owns the pipes and stuff, but still they're struggling and they would do much better off being on sewer. So really like from one end to the other, you know, these businesses, they have a hard time on septic. And so if there was ever a chance of getting regional sewer, I for one would be thrilled because it would really be the best. It's the best way for human health and the environment, honestly. And anyway, that's my endorsement. I would love to see regional sewer.
Okay.
Not for new buildings, but for all the existing stuff. I mean, new buildings great, but I'm saying like there's so many that could benefit right now that you know, all these existing places.
Any comment, guys?
Yeah, Wayne's on mute. He
Yeah, I
doesn't-
know. I can see him talking. That's why I asked. Wayne.
Okay.
There you
One thing that is on the calendar, and I think, Pam, with your support, we might be able to do something, and that is the widening of 3A from North Situate to Beechwood Street is going to happen supposedly next year. And that would be before any agreements or anything else is sort of finished on a regional sewer. And I think that it would be good to put a dry pipe in while all the excavation's going, because the state won't allow you to dig up 3A from in that area for probably another 10 years or 8 years or something. And of course, the cost of doing it, we would probably have to pay out of pocket or put an assessment on the future, you know, people that would use it. And it doesn't have to, you know, doing it for that business area is sort of really smart. If you don't want to have connections in the next, you know, with the next phase from Beechwood Street to Pond Street or something, you could have a different district there that says, you know, this is residential and it's not for business, to sort of limit your business area. So that's the 2 cents I wanted to put in.
So Wayne, are they going from like Situate, like Gannon Street all the way down? I mean, or whatever, you know.
And they're going to put, basically, they're going to use the entire 80-foot right of way. Right now, they have a 60-foot right of, you know, they're using about 60 feet. So they want to put sidewalks on both sides. They want to make it almost a pedestrian able thing so that you could go down 3A and cross the street safely and things like that, to make it, you know, more of almost a planned development where we have something that is all scattered. You know,
That's
so
already been approved.
it's already been approved. It's already been engineered. And I
Wow.
think if Brian's on, he could give you an update. But I did talk to him about, you know, putting in a dry pipe across Beechwood Street from Beechwood Street to Beechwood Street in case Beechwood ever gets sewered. And like we did at the railroad crossings, but in fact, put one dry pipe on one side or both sides. And I would probably say put it on both sides so that they would be on the edge of the private property, so that individual buildings would be able to be connected without us having to pay for that infrastructure. In other words, it's just a bonus to get something in that we know at some point in the future we're going to have.
Yeah, no, I guess I conditionally agree with this. And the condition is, we still don't know how much flow we're gonna be able to, what the flow that Hull would give us. That's a
Right.
number that's a number we have to have. I think we could put the pipe in, certainly in case, but, and, I don't know whether, because I've asked the question, at some point in time, can Hull build another plant and still use the same outflow they have? Because the US government is not permitting any kind of saltwater outfalls ever again. And they've got one of them, and Deer Island has another one, and that's it. So I'm just wondering, we just have to figure out what the flow that we can get, to be able to take North Situate and then all of Cohasset. I still think we need to have a contingency that, God forbid, our plant goes belly up. We need to have a way of being able to pump to Hull as well. So, that's just my 2 cents.
I think that presentation last week was a real eye opener.
Oh, yeah.
What happens if the plant gets flooded or something?
Yeah, it's going to be a busy time.
What happens when the plant has a membrane problem? So,
Well, yeah, that too. I mean, so if I suppose if the plant gets flooded, we don't have a membrane problem anymore.
yeah.
So,
Well, the whole, I'm not a fan of the word regional, only because right now it's us pumping to Hull. It's not regional. If we're going to call it regional, then I think the state needs to come in with a minimum of 80% funding.
yeah, not supposedly. I mean, what I've heard from Jim Boudreau, from the Situate town manager, is that the state and the federal government have money to do virtually all of it.
Okay.
And it has to be a regional. It has to be 2 or more cities or towns or whatever.
Right.
I haven't talked to Rosemary in a couple of weeks, but she's going to get back to me on a few things. And Pam, I don't want to take your thunder. Are you done? Are you?
No, I'm just listening. I'm
Okay.
good.
That at some point in time, we need to have a public meeting on this. We have to have either a Zoom or a session where we start talking about this to the public, because we can't do it in a vacuum. But we need to know, I think at the very least, that if we were going to do a regional with North Situate, what our capacity, their capacity, what our needs, their needs are, and whether or not Hull can deal with it, and whether we can go down 3A and pick up other properties and that kind of thing. I mean, we don't know what the bag of stuff is going to be yet, the total. And we need to know whether or not we can actually send that to Hull.
Do you want me to look at some of these different plazas and find out what the flows are of all of them, just to give us like
Yeah,
a
that'd be a good idea.
ballpark number? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and by the way, they may have some of that information already, Woodward and Curran, in terms of identifying those. And I think the second part of this is, I'd like to have it so that if there was a catastrophe at the plant, that in fact there'd be enough capacity for us to send all of our sewer over there.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't say, okay, we can do 100,000 gallons a day, but what do we do with the other 250,000 gallons? And it can be anything from, something happening with our outfall that we have to shut the outfall off. Now, what do? We open up every pipe to Hull, but it's only going to be about 140,000 gallons. And so we need to, do 2 things. One is probably on our own dime, connect the areas that have smaller pipes than what they actually need to be in order to take more flow, like the end of Beach Street, where the 2 or 3 inch pipe that should be a 4-inch pipe, and those types of things. So wherever we can do that, we should
Yeah,
really
I liked your idea, Wayne, of having two pipes going down. I mean, if there's one that's basically say just for, kicks and giggles here, it takes North Situate and areas on Main Street that we want to have sewered. That's one pipe, but the other pipe could take us. So if something happens to our plant, we've got a conduit that goes to Hull.
Mhm.
Because I mean, looking at the plant and I wish I could get the other guys back, and maybe we can have it and I don't know if Brian is still on. Brian is on.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
has a
Hi,
question.
guys. Sorry, I'm jumping in. I have a progress meeting on the Beechwood Water Main. I gotta jump off, but just quickly, that DOT project has been in design for about a decade. It's been on the TIP, which is a very transportation improvement plan for DOT. So it's a very long process. It's designed, but if we want to put in a pipe, I think we need to approach them now because the design is complete and I think bid is probably a year away or less. So I can send you contact info, but that would be a non-participating cost. We'd need to come up with the funding to put that pipe in the ground. But it is at a discount, a pretty big discount. If you remember the $6 million Cunningham Bridge project, you guys put a sewer crossing across there for 30 grand, which is pretty cheap.
Yeah. Brian, do you have contact information with the folks from Woods Hole? And if so, could you either send it to me or ask them if they would do a presentation to the board and whomever else wants to come in and sit and listen to it?
Sure. So you mean the same presentation they did at the last meeting?
Yeah, but I think I think it would be, I'd like to have it specific to like sewer and the plant and all that kind of stuff. I mean, have a little bit more detailed discussion on it.
Sure. Yeah, I'll forward the contact info for I think his name's Nasser.
Right. And Dan has also come up with a couple of different things that weren't covered well or were not covered accurately as something that it would be important to give to them before they came.
Yeah.
So
Wayne, I kind of recanted, looking
did?
back, he did do the correct adjustment on the 1.5, so.
Sorry,
Okay.
guys, I gotta jump. I'll send you those emails. Thanks.
thank you very much, Brian.
Sorry, I'm like.
Okay.
And one thing they didn't address, and this is, when we call Rosemary or find out when we get to this big meeting, I know we keep talking about if some catastrophic storm comes in and overwhelms our facility, I would assume that same storm is going to have an effect on Situate's plant and Hull's plant as well. So-
Oh, no, yeah, we have talked about that. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, and I think it's like when, I think that when there was a storm in Boston, and I think Deer Island and Moon Island had to have basically discharge raw sewage into Boston Harbor.
yeah. I'd be curious to see what the folks from Woodhull, had predicted the 100-year storm. I just was curious.
Yeah. And my point of having them come again is I want to have Rosemary here to talk about it as well. I mean, she's pretty fluent on all this stuff. These guys are, as you remember, they're kind of they're engineers. I mean, but they're specific engineers, and that's sort of all they talk about.
Okay.
So, anyway.
Well, one of the things is our plant is 50 years old, and something that's 50 years old certainly must have some things that are going to need replacement or upgrading and things that we haven't upgraded and stuff over the past. So that's something also to, with their report, what is or maybe someone else should be doing it with incurring it with it, but what else needs to be done over the next 10 or 20 years?
Yeah, and I think to our next sort of our next subject, but yeah, I think having were to do like a 10-year capital replacement plan with costs, I mean, they're probably gonna say the whole plant needs to be replaced, everything internal to it. And one of the things that got me is that from the Woods Hole to, even from my site visit with them, and then the report from Woods Hole is that even if you put up barriers to keep water out, that means whoever's inside can't get out because of the water. I mean, it's a real weird, it's just, I kept hearing this thing and I'm like, really? So we got some issues. And I don't think we can pick we can't pick the plant up 10 feet, but.
Yeah, but some of the things that aren't in the programs or the things they're studying is, I can only imagine what downtown Cohasset Village would be like with 2 or 3 feet of water above the pavement.
They were talking that the fire and police station would be shut down because you'd have up to 3 feet of water in front of them.
Right. So that 3 feet of water in the police and fire station is higher than the center of town.
Oh, yeah. And it roll all the way down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go down the street, down Beach Street, connect on to Sandy Beach or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I won't be able to come to my office. So, but it's,
Things might go well.
pardon me?
Things might go well.
Yeah, they certainly might be better. But yeah, I mean, it's
Hey, one of the questions I want to ask these, regional state people is, we're capped at what we can produce, right, with a 20% contingency built in there. And we know the plant can do way more than that. We just got our renewal on our certificate. Have they ever considered increasing the flow for us as part of this regional plan? I mean,
I don't know.
we all have the capacity to pump more, but they will only give us a license to pump a limited amount. And if their concern is pumping sewer, then they need to be able to increase what we're allowed to pump,
No, that's a good point.
as well as tie a regional plan together, because we all have a maximum capacity, and then they lower that down by 50%, and then they make us keep 20% of that in reserve. So they're going to have to give a little on that number, I think.
Well, yeah, I that's a very good point. But I also think that hinges on our immediate issue of the membranes.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're struggling under what's going on, I did talk to Scott Monday, and he said things are kind of copacetic, and I could look at that both good and bad, but it doesn't seem like there's a huge issue now, but I think we have to I think we have to plan for, failure, because if we don't, and things happen, we're screwed. We're gonna be sending trucks out at whatever. I think Paul Davis told me it's thousands of dollars every time you fill up a truck and send it somewhere.
Yeah, so his capacity limit is the number of trucks he owns. So,
Well, yeah, but he said that he can get his
more
own,
trucks,
he
yeah.
can get Wind River, and there's some other company he mentioned. He said there's about 15 of them or something, 12 or 15 available pretty quickly. So,
Well, I think that if we're doing the regional thing, and it's going to hopefully be 90 or 100% paid by the state and federal government and stuff, that there should be items that we would be doing at our plant as part of that plan, and have that come under that, that umbrella of project, because we are giving up, we're sort of, I want them to have some sort of a buy-in to what it is that we have, and the ability of them to go through our property and do all these other things. We should be getting something that is concrete from that, like a plant upgrade if it's needed for certain things, or the bypasses that we need in case something happens with our plant because of the increased flows from Situate and all this other stuff. So that should be part of the, the whole grant program and what it is that we're going to do, because Hull is going to be doing it. Hull is going to most likely, one of the things that they wanted us to do is to run a pipe from Hull Street to the plant, which is what, 3 or 4 miles at a huge cost. And that was going to be a force main that's taking what we're giving them. So, that's something that Hull isn't going to pay to upgrade the pipe that they need to take our flows. So that has to be funded by other people, by the.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind too is, looking at the Woods Hole report and the impacts to the community, the whole plant already is susceptible to flooding. They have their tide gates already around it. You gotta imagine that, an extra 6 feet of flood elevation in that area is going to have some big impacts there. So that has to be considered too, because at this point in time, they're probably more susceptible than flooding than Cohasset is.
Hull you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it happened once already, and it cost them millions and millions of dollars.
Right. And that's under existing conditions. So.
Right. And that was partly human error. In terms of, or maybe design flaws or something like that. You don't necessarily.
Right. But they do have flood elevations that are already at the point where it could flood the plant. So it's, any regional solution has to also incorporate, what the future holds.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Meaning that Hull is going to have the same issues that we are about capacity and estimates and all this other stuff. Look at what happened to Hull with the blizzard of 78 or something. Everything looks like it was happened in Situate, but Hull, the water went right over the one side of Paragon Park to the other side, and that certainly, whether it's a 100-year storm or a 50-year storm, it certainly is going to happen again. So next.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Pam, for this, and we'll include you in on the next session, particularly if I can get Rosemary and the Woods Hole guys on it.
That'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So next is capital requests, and I think this is, I know we've been doing this, but I think we have to get our capital requests up to date in the next couple of weeks to submit. So I'm going to ask Carol to get to Scott and ask him for what he thinks needs to be replaced and or repaired as a capital. Certainly our barn doors were installed after what, 10 years or something like that. So that's a success in there. But I think we have to.
We have a 10-year plan that we put together.
Yep.
And is that the one you're talking about updating?
Yeah, I want to update it, but I also want to update what we're going to be doing like in the next year. Typically, I haven't gone before the capital committee in several years. But typically they want to know, what are you going to do next fiscal year?
Yeah, I mentioned to the select board, because that was a question of me, was have we gone to capital? And I mentioned to him that we had our 5 and 10-year plan that we had submitted to them. And we're on track with that 5 to 10-year plan, but revising it is what we're going to do.
I think in lieu of what happened with the membranes and the screens and this and that, do we have to put 2 or 3 of these issues or items rather on our capital plan to be replaced in the next fiscal year? I guess is the best way for me to say it.
Yeah, I don't know what Dan came up with when we talked about the grit screw and the extra screening and all of that stuff that contributed to the issues with the membranes there. So I don't know if they ever came back with any costs to do any of that.
I haven't seen it.
They haven't yet, but they're working up a couple of different options for you. One
Okay.
was repair, one was a drop-in replacement of some of the main components, and another one was basic total system replacement.
Yeah, you talked about custom screens and grit screw stuff, so.
Right. It's almost getting too late for for next fiscal year, if it's starting on July 1, as far as the selectmen and things like that. So
Yeah, well, that's,
we're really looking 2 years ahead.
yeah, but I mean, I mean, what are we looking at next year? You know, that type of thing, next fiscal year, what do we need to do? And of course, we're sort of still waiting to see whether or not this ARPA grant will cover the membrane replacements, if we have to do that. But then again, that's a minimum of 52 weeks out if we order it today. So, and I think it would be longer myself, but anyway. Okey dokey.
I don't know what, I don't recall anything major being on the capital budget for FY 24, because we did the Deer Hill and veterans pump stations. That was the
Yep.
the monies we got at town meeting for that. But barn doors, that money already was allocated 2 years ago. They finally came in.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the things that came up with when the membranes were deteriorating, the
Yeah.
screens and that kind of stuff. That's
Yeah, the whole
primarily.
The whole grid screw situation, yeah. I
Yeah.
think, I don't know if that's gonna be more than 30, 40 grand, but we certainly have it in our budget. Funds in our budget to allocate towards it.
Yep.
I don't think we need additional funds, but I think you're right, though, if we have to replace a quarter of the membranes or 50% of the membranes, we got a budget for that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, thankfully, we're kind of flush right now.
Yeah,
And, you know, we haven't been, you know, years ago, but so we can obviously pay for it, but yeah, I just want to be able to tell them, these are the kinds of things that we're going to be buying in the next fiscal year and why, that's all.
okay.
I'll get in touch with Scott, see if he can get me a list.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, put the motorhome on the plan upgrade list.
That might float away.
Yeah, I know.
And somebody actually asked about that when we were on the site, like, you know, why don't you you're probably gonna have to anchor this sucker because
Yeah, yeah.
tie it to a tree or something.
They thought there were squatters there, and like, no, that's the sewer office.
Yeah,
About 20 years ago, the town owned one of the ducks that the military gave us.
Oh, yeah.
This equipment, yeah, and it was behind the police and fire station for a long, long time. So, but maybe it's time to put in a request for another one.
Yeah, maybe we get some money out of that emergency management
Yeah, they got their,
department, huh? Well, he's got a couple of Humvees over there.
oh, really? Yeah, you know, the ducks, I know, like, being down on the Cape, you know, moons ago, those things would be, they had two of them in Chatham, and they would use those for surf rescue. And they were enormous machines, and they would just drive over the sand into the drink and then back up again. And whoever made them is probably getting ready to start making them again, because they're going to be needed.
Oh, yeah.
All right, anything else, gentlemen, that we need to discuss?
Mhm.
Just a quick question. I just got a copy of the CJC amendment. It looks like it was the Lisi's version. Was the revisions and amendments I added in, was that rejected by Corbo?
Nope, we sent that over to Greg Corbo. And he approved everything on March 2nd. And you were going to come up with a reporting mechanism, some sort of form for them to fill out with all the data that we required.
Yeah, that was all part of what I had submitted with the revisions to the amendment.
Yeah. So this is just the amendment part of the agreement for them to execute, and your pieces are going to be given to them.
Yeah, but it doesn't, this is the old version. This is,
For reporting.
That, I might have sent you the wrong one, Dan.
oh, okay. Never mind.
That'd be my fault.
Okay,
So we'll have so Phil, you'll have that available at Michelle's office or the town clerk's office. Just let us know.
Yeah, I'll get a copy and then I'll go go down to the clerk and sign it and then leave it for, and I'll let you guys know that I have, and then
Okay.
you can go for that, all right?
And Dan, part of your review for us in a couple of weeks is just making sure that we have the ongoing reporting mechanisms in place so that you get the data and
Yeah, basically, there was a series of forms that I attached as part of the amendment.
yeah, so they're not part of the amendment. The reporting forms are
This reference,
they're a flowing tool for us to gather information on, so they're not part of an amendment. It's just a reporting mechanism that we're creating for them.
okay,
So instead of leaving it up to them on how they want to present data to us, we're saying this is how we want the data presented to us.
yeah, I think the original agreement said on a form agreed to or mutually agreed to, so
Yeah,
that's why we put them in.
We agreed to your form, we just have to get it to them.
No, I meant your original agreement with them.
Right,
Said, okay,
yeah, we mutually agreed to the form, we haven't given it to them yet. So,
All right. Anything else, guys?
I think that's it.
Thank you very,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second,
All right, and I'll do a roll call. Bill McGowan, aye.
Paul Kearsarge.
Wayne Sawchuck, aye.
All right, guys.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very
Happy-
much. See you later.
Hey, happy Easter.
Yeah, likewise.
Take care.
Yep.
happy